Today's yin practice, we're going to focus a little bit more on the kidney and bladder meridians. These are the two most important meridians. So if you see a lot of these videos about those two meridians, they're very important in Chinese medicine. Your kidneys are considered to be your source of your energy. And so they're the ones that you want to work on first and foremost before you move to any other meridians. And you want to make sure that they're balanced because everybody wants to have energy and be energized. So as usual, just a couple of small props, a blanket or something soft underneath. If you're on carpet, you're probably okay, but I always like to have a blanket underneath because my knees get a little bit sore. A second blanket rolled up or folded over, and or a beach towel rolled up for our first pose here. And this is optional. This is a cat. You can have one or not. This is Mimo. She apparently is going to join us for today's practice. So we're going to start on our backs. You're going to have your rolled up blanket toward the top end. Move your optional item out of the way. So you want to roll all the way down. Get your shoulder blades on that blanket and then kind of roll yourself off a little bit. So this is a supported fish with a little added benefit here. So take the arms out to the side. You can bring the bottoms of the feet together. This is bound angle with a little bit of a fish chest opener. So you want to get it to where you may have to kind of tuck this a little bit to get the shoulder blades right on the floor, really close to the floor. Take some nice deep breaths, close your eyes. And as always, when you put a blanket in your back, it is always a bit shocking. Sometimes it's a bit disorienting. And this comes from being bent over all day long, over devices, computer screens, driving in cars. And this is just a way to reverse that curve, that curvature forward. Just kind of open the upper back up. And here's a great opportunity to take some nice, deep, full breaths. Starting with the belly button, making belly breaths. And then moving that breath to the center of the chest, expanding out to the side body, and then all the way up to the shoulder blades, up to the collarbones, and allowing those to expand and open. Let your knees fall open a little bit more. Just keeping the outside edge of your foot, left and right touching. So your kidney meridian starts on the outside where your pinky toe is, comes underneath the foot, runs into the inside seam of your leg. So any pose that touches that inside seam is usually a kidney meridian effector. And then it runs up into your kidney, into the actual organ, and then moves up the front side of the body. Bladder meridian runs along the back side. So we're actually sort of compressing that in the open back position. So this position could be considered to be affecting both these meridians pretty equally. About halfway through now. You might start to feel that that blanket in your back is less invasive. At some point, those muscles sort of just release. Practice of yin is one of deep patience. For me, it's so easy to move in and out in a vinyasa flow. I have a very busy mind, and it's nice to have something to do physically to keep that mind kind of in pace. But when you lay in a position for an extended period of time, it's just you and your thoughts. This gives you the chance to sort of really dig into how you're thinking, how your body's feeling. Every single little sensation becomes much more vivid in your yin practice. You have just about 3 more deep breaths here. Very slowly start to extend your left and right legs till they're straight. You wiggle your toes a little bit. And then bend those knees so the feet are flat. And just let those knees fall over to the right. So this is a really slow process. Oh, my prop is in the way again. Press yourself up. So out of every yin posture, be sure to come out super, super slow. So we're gonna come back on our back again. So you're gonna take that blanket off to the side. My other prop can stay there. She's a really good cat. She joins all our yoga classes and is everybody's friend. So go ahead and bring those knees into the chest. You're gonna cross at the upper thigh, just like in Gomukhasana or cow face pose. And you're going to cross right over left and then bring your hands to either grab hold of the shins, the knees. Some people can reach their feet and that's great, but in this case, grabbing your feet sort of flexes your toes and sort of puts a little compression on the ankle. So it's a little bit better maybe to let that be softer. So yin is a little softer. Feel some stretch on the outside edge. And also maybe a little compression on the inside as the legs are brought closer together. So I always think of yoga as focusing on compression and flexion. So you have something that folds over and compresses and then it opens. And so you get that ebb and flow of energy, blood. You may find that after a few breaths, you can pull those knees in a little bit closer, or maybe not. Remember that in yin, we only press ourselves to that sort of 65% level. So not at your 100%. You're not going to pull those knees in as far as you can go. You're going to pull them into about 2/3 of what you can go. Where you feel sensation, you feel stretch, you feel, for me, a lot of times, a little bit of discomfort, but not pain or sharp shooting pains. Always come in a position that is what we call sustainable, that you can hold for a little bit longer. Standard yin postures go anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes. Most of the videos I have up run about 2 to 3 minutes. That's kind of a comfort level for a lot of people. 2 more deep breaths here. And slowly unwind, take your feet up to the ceiling, maybe wiggle them around a little bit, wiggle your hands around a little bit, and then you're going to cross the opposite way. So one side may be a little bit tighter than the other. I always find this to be true. That maybe you can't bring one side in as close. Maybe it's harder to grab the shins. For me, that would be my left is a little bit tighter. And just trying to make those nice deep breaths. So those same breaths that you had at the beginning where your heart was lifted and you had a lot of expansion in the chest, try to focus on breathing into the belly, the chest, the collarbones, expanding. And those breaths will help you bring the knees in maybe a little bit closer, and also to breathe through any discomfort that you have in the posture. Breath is your best friend in yin. Second only to blankets or fuzzy props. Once again, maybe bringing those knees in a little bit closer. And you'll feel the sensation start to ebb a little bit, and that's what I mean by when you're ready to pull in a little closer. You feel sort of that discomfort dissipate, you feel the opening kind of happening naturally, and so you just sort of move into that opening. You fill the space. Just about 2 more deep breaths here. Slowly start to unwind, take those feet up, shake them out a little bit, shake the hands out a little bit. Bring the knees into the chest, you can rock them side to side, maybe make some little circles, left and right. Drop those feet down. Go ahead and stretch through your fingertips. Really nice big stretch here. And then roll over to your right side and make your way onto your knees. So coming into a child's pose, you're going to take your knees super, super wide. As wide as you can, big toes together. Go ahead and take a couple of breaths here. So in a normal child's pose, we would take our knees a little bit closer together to be a little more comfortable. But here we really want to get that inside seam. So you want to kind of press the toes down. You're going to go ahead and lean forward, walk yourself over to the left. Look, my prop. Tuck that right arm underneath. Come down onto the side of your head. And if this is really uncomfortable, you can pull that blanket back over and prop your head there. You can take your left arm out to the side or in front. You can curl it around behind you and tuck it to the opposite hip. If it kind of gets stuck there and feels like it's hanging in space, you can tuck it in your pants or on the other side of the opposite hip. And take some nice deep breaths here. So after a few breaths, you might find you can walk that right arm out a little bit further, kind of opening the back side of the shoulder. About halfway through, give yourself another maybe 10 breaths.
Last 2 deep breaths. Releasing some of that tension in the back of the shoulder. And start to bring that left hand back around. Press the palm into the floor, come back up to center. I always like to sort of press into my hands, bring those knees a little bit closer together, and just take a little break here in between. So stack your hands on top of one another, rest your forehead. And then coming back up, if you think you might need that blanket, once again, have it nearby. Take your knees super wide. Walk your hands up over to the opposite side, right side now. Tuck that left arm underneath. Head to the blanket or the floor. Right arm can go out in front of you, to the side, or tucked around behind. And always remember that if you get into a pose and you think, wow, I'm not sure I like the position I chose, you can always come out and change it. So if you don't like your hand behind your back, you can take that hand out to the side or in front. You can move the blanket out of the way, bring your head down all the way. Wherever you're at, bring that right palm down. Slowly press back up. Bring the hands a little bit closer. Lift those knees up, bring them closer together, and come back into your child's pose. Hands on top of one another, forehead to the floor or to the hands. And then come back up. So we're going to change our configuration for our blanket here. If you have knees that are a little bit sore or tend to be sore, you'll want to fold the blanket really thick. Here comes PJ. We're going to take dragon pose next. So you're going to take that blanket back, take your left knee on it, walk your right leg out in front. I'm going to give you a couple of different options here. So you can take your hands on top of that front knee and hang out here. You can take your hands to the inside of the foot or somewhere in between. So take some nice deep breaths. We're just going to be here for 2 minutes. You get to meet a new kitty. This is PJ. PJ's not been in a video yet. So it's always in these poses where you're in them a little bit longer, you start to realize just how much effort and ease goes into these poses. You think it's simple to start with because in a vinyasa flow, you come in and out of this posture quite often. But when you hold it for 2 to 3 minutes, there's a lot more going on when you hold for much longer. Thank you. Now, if your hands are up, go ahead and take those hands down to the floor, to the inside of that right foot. Keep the right foot where it's at. Don't move it out, and don't rotate the knee out yet, quite yet. Take a couple more breaths. You could be on fingertips or fists if your wrists are a little bit cranky in this pose. And then start to rotate that right knee out a little bit for winged dragon. Just 3 breaths here. And then walk that left hand a little bit closer. Right hand's going to come to the knee, and you're going to twist just for 3 breaths here. Back to center. Go ahead and start to rock back into that left leg. Take the right next to left. You can either come back into a down dog and stretch the legs out a little bit, or a child's pose, or somewhere in between. And then you're going to switch. Left leg goes forward. If you hadn't noticed, PJ's my talker. Once again, you can take the hands to the inside of the foot, or you can take those hands on top of that knee, your left hand on the bottom. Stretch. We got PJ when my son was 3. My son talks a lot, so we felt that a cat that talked a lot back would be appropriate. Now we have 2 things that talk a lot. Is let your hips sink here. Remembering that yin is about not pushing too far. It's about really kind of letting the connective tissue kick in, helping those muscles sort of release, where we get deeper into the connective tissue, into the fascia. The things that surround the muscles and surround the organs, and kind of tie everything together. Our goal is to help things stay mobile and more fluid. So it's like a cotton ball that when you start to kind of pull the threads a little bit apart, it becomes a little bit thinner and more spread out. It doesn't really stretch, it's the same cotton ball, but you have a little bit more space. Things aren't as tightly woven. A couple more breaths high up. If you're up here, and then go ahead and come down onto your fingertips if you're not already there, or palms. Keep that knee in alignment. Don't drift it out to the side quite yet. And then go ahead and tilt that left knee out to the left. 3 deep breaths here. And then right hand down, left hand to that knee. Twist to the left. Come back to center, start to rock back. Take either child's pose or downward facing dog, either one. Walk everything out. Find a little stretch. And then come down into child's pose if you're not already there. Sink back. And rest here, arms up overhead. Stretch the hands out wide. Go ahead and walk your hands back up. You're going to take that blanket that was underneath your knees and you're going to stack it up over here. You're going to take a half a dragonfly. I've got like a posse here today. Bring that left foot in, right foot out. And instead of doing like a normal fold, a Janu Shirshasana off to the side, we're actually going to fold forward. So I use the edge of the blanket to kind of tilt my pelvis forward so I get a little bit of a roll forward. Relax your toes. Normally we flex really deeply. If you have to, you can kind of bounce your knee a little bit and just hang out here. So it may be that your right hip comes a little bit off the floor. That's what the blanket's there for, is to sort of support that. Remember that in yin, we're allowed to sort of roll forward. So what I do is I go as far as I can with gravity, and then I sort of allow myself to curve forward. If you're someone who's very comfortable coming all the way down to the floor without really pushing yourself, go ahead and come down as far as you want. You can always come down onto your furry prop if you have one. Just about 2 more deep breaths here. I love to hold these forward fold poses that I struggle with in a normal Hatha or Vinyasa practice, because I like the lack of muscle engagement here to just really kind of sink in. And at some point you may feel just sort of everything just kind of, the muscle just sort of letting go. Start to walk your hands back up very slowly. Take a couple of breaths here at the top. And then go ahead and switch feet. So take that left out to the left. Bring your hand into the knee. Fold that right in. So this knee is a little bit crankier. It doesn't go as far for me. Inhale up nice and tall. Relax your toes and fold yourself forward. So if you're like me at all, sometimes your practice includes a large number of distractions, children, pets, the phone. I always tell people, life is like that. That's what yoga really should be about. It's not these silent moments of meditation that you get. Yoga is filled with those moments in which you handle things and you learn to turn your focus inward in spite of what's going on around you, to incorporate what you have in front of you, to help you. I meditate and often I will have 3 or 4 cats looking for attention at the same time. And I've learned to make it part of my soothing practice. Iyengar used to call that householder yogis. Householder yogis are those that practice yoga in the real world with a family and pets and a life and a job and a household, and we just
we work with it. We accommodate it in our practice. Feel this leg giving way a little bit faster. Sometimes the second side will sort of release faster than the first. One side learns from the other, I'm hopeful. Just about 5 more breaths here. And sometimes you'll feel that your muscles will tighten back up again, and you have to mentally say, shush, calm down, release. Start to walk your hands all the way back up. Couple of breaths here. I think they think the blanket's for them. My kids build forts out of my props, so. Okay. Unwind yourself. Come back onto our backs again. We don't need that blanket, so we can go off to the side. Some of my other props can too. Bring those knees into your chest. And you're going to reach inside, grab hold of the inside or outside of your feet. So you want to get a good hold because this is sort of a yang property to it. So you want to press the feet into the hands, hands into the feet. Pull those shoulder blades down, lengthen out through the neck. And try to just sort of tilt that pelvis down toward the floor a little bit. So there's a little yang factor in here. Your arms are working against the feet are working against the arms. You may be someone who has a lot of opening in your hips and you can get those knees all the way down to the floor. In that case, go ahead and go where you can. Or you could be someone who your feet don't get into this position. It looks a little bit more wide, right? The idea here is to try to get those heels above the knees down closer to the floor. The goal in yin here is to get a nice stretch. So whatever you do that gets sensation, you are where you need to be. Three more deep breaths. Slowly release those feet. Bring the knees into the chest, roll the shoulders back. And I like to end every yin practice or every practice with a twist because I think they feel really good. So keeping your knees into your chest, take your arms out to the side. You can bend the elbows or keep them palms straight, but drop your knees over to the left side. Try to stack those knees on top of one another and keep that right shoulder and left shoulder down to the floor. So that may mean that you straighten out your arm more. You can turn and look over your right shoulder. Maybe you feel your knees after a few breaths start to lean a little further over. And more deep breaths. Breathing into that right shoulder, right side body, right hip. Last deep breath. Inhale, turn your head back up to the ceiling. Pull those knees back into your chest. And then you're going to drop those knees over to the opposite side. I'm going to shift my hips over so I don't smash my props. Well, that's kind of inevitable. Keep those shoulders grounded. You can turn and look over your left shoulder or look straight up. Just let those knees get super heavy. Breathing into that left shoulder, left side waist, left hip. Just about 3 more deep breaths. Inhale, turn your head back to center. Pull those knees back through the middle. Hug the knees into the chest. And go ahead and take the feet flat. Go ahead and take one heel at a time out to the corners of the mat. If you have any back issues where you're being a little more careful about your back, you can walk your feet wider on the mat and drop the knees toward one another so they support each other. Tuck the shoulder blades underneath, and today just go ahead and take your hands to your lower belly. Elbows wide. Take some nice deep breaths. Feel that belly first, and the chest and collarbones. Noticing left and right, front and back, top and bottom. Noticing possibly the difference in your energy level as we're working with the kidney meridian, the source of your energy. Send some breath into the back side of the body, about where your hands are located now in the lower belly. Back side where the kidneys are, inflating that space around the kidneys. Bringing air and massage and nourishment to that area. So every breath you take massages the internal organs. And so if you focus your breath on certain areas, you can really help those organs perform better. So if you have a little extra time, you can always stay here in Shavasana for as long as you feel you need to. If you are limited on time, take about 4 more deep breaths. And slowly start to wiggle your fingers and toes. And very gently bending one knee at a time, bring your feet flat to the floor. Take a nice deep breath here. On your inhale, take the arms up overhead, stretch the fingertips, pressing your lower back into the floor. And then exhale, roll over onto your right side. Take a few breaths here on your right side. And then when you're ready, press yourself up using your left hand. Come into whatever seated position you like best. That could be crossed legs or feet underneath you. Lift and lengthen through your spine. Bring your shoulders up to your ears and then drop those shoulders down. Hands either palms up or palms down onto your knees or in your lap. Take a few moments here to just notice how you feel now. To check in with yourself mentally and physically. To congratulate yourself on taking a few moments to take care of yourself. On your next exhale, drop the fingertips down to the floor. Inhale, sweep the hands up overhead. Open your eyes, look up at your palms. Exhale, hands to heart. Peace and namaste. I hope you enjoyed this yin practice. Feel free to check out the other YouTube videos with different meridian touches and also to try the different kidney and bladder meridians. Focusing on starting with those first. So I always suggest people start with the kidney and bladder meridians first and try to do those at least every other time they do a practice, just to keep those meridian lines clear and free and balanced. I hope your energy level continues to rise and may you have a great afternoon. And I hope to see you again here on YouTube. Thank you so much.